Welcome back to day 5 of my 31 days of Halloween themed drawing tutorials here on YouTube. Every single day in October, a new drawing tutorial like today's, where I'm going to show you how you can draw this cute kawaii candy corn from start to finish. So if you want to draw with me, keep watching. All right, everyone, let's go ahead and draw this piece of candy corn. Starting out, I'm using a 4000 by 4000 300 DPI canvas. For my brush, I'm gonna start out using my standard Inker Streamline, which is part of my cartooning brush set. And for my color palette, I'm gonna use this one that I've already got made up. If you guys have watched the previous videos in the series, I do have these color palettes available for free on my website. If you go to bjaydell.com and go to the YouTube reference section on there, you can download these. They're just JPEGs, so once you have them saved, insert a photo with that JPEG, and then you can long press the colors. So let's go ahead and get started here. So I'm gonna choose this yellow, that's my first color. And then to begin with, we're just gonna draw a circle. Holding down with the one finger and then touching with the other one's gonna lock that into a perfect circle. And then we're gonna drag and drop the yellow in there. So we've got a nice yellow circle, but of course, candy corn's not a circle, it's more of that triangle, so we need to get it there. So to do that, we're gonna go up to our arrow here, and we're gonna go to warp. And then we're just gonna start to bring down the sides here. So it's got a nice kind of flatter curve here at the bottom. Then of course, it's gonna come up a little bit sharper here at the top to more of that triangle look. And then once we have something that we're happy with, we can just go ahead and hit our brush to lock it in. And there we go. I'm gonna position this a little bit more in the center here. So we've got our piece of candy corn started. Using the circle technique and the warp like that, it's just a little bit easier if you're maybe not as comfortable with drawing. You can get some really nice smooth lines for this just by using that technique. So really kind of throwing that out there to recommend it to people that might not feel as comfortable drawing it by hand. So now, of course, candy corn done, but it's not all yellow. We've got those other colors in there, so we need to do that next. So let's go ahead and go up to our color picker, and we're gonna choose orange here. Going back up to our layers now, we're gonna go ahead and set this layer 1 as alpha lock. So this is gonna allow us to draw on this layer here without going outside of the lines. So I'm gonna get just an orange stripe in here, or orange line, and then an orange line up here. And then that's gonna allow me to just kind of fill in this area with orange. Now this orange is gonna be pretty close to the color that you have for the base of this, the yellow. So when you start to drag and drop this in, you might fill up the whole thing. If that happens, you'll see this color drop threshold up here. With your pencil held down, just slide this to the left or right. You can see it changes that number. And if you drop it lower, it's not gonna pick up as much of that surrounding color, and it's just gonna fill in just that orange. So there we go. So now we gotta get the top white. So let's go ahead and pick our white color here, and we can drag and drop this one in. So there we go. Now, of course, we can't see this white because of the background. So we could change the color of the background now, or I usually save the background step for last, but we're gonna actually do the background right now, just so we've got that out of the way and so we can see that white section. So we're gonna add a new layer here. We're gonna drag this down behind our candy corn. And then going up to our color palette here, I've got this blue down here. We're gonna select that. And then going back to my brushes, I'm gonna go ahead and go with my texture pack. And then the feathered crosshatch. This one, of course, if you guys want to try something else that's different that's included with Procreate, you can, but I just really like this one in that pack of mine. So I'm going to use this one and just kind of just go softly there in the center, and you can see it kind of fades it out and around. I think I might drop the opacity just a little bit of this so it's not so bright. There we go. So we can still see that white. And now we got our background down. Like I said, usually the first thing or the last thing that I do is more of the first thing right now. So I know that's a little bit out of the ordinary, but when you have white like that, sometimes that's the choice you gotta make. So let's go ahead now and give this guy a face. So going back up to our color palette here, the next color over, this third one, is this brown. That's what I'm going to use for the face. So let's zoom in here just a little bit. And then I'm going to go up to my layer 1, and I'm going to make a new layer. And then, of course, I need to switch back my brush. So I need to go back to my cartooning set and do a circle here for one eye. Move this around here, get it to where I want it. That looks pretty good. And now I'm going to go ahead and select my white. Do another circle here for the pupil. Drag and drop my color in there. And you'll see I've got that line here. This is where I was talking before about that color drop threshold. If you have lines when you're filling in, your color drop threshold isn't turned up high enough. So holding down your pencil, slide to the right, and you'll see that line starts to disappear. I'm to the edge of my thing here, so I need to come back over and try this again. So keep going, and go too far, it'll fill in everything. So you want to get it to where it just fills in that. And there you go. I know that's a problem that a lot of people have. Constantly see that comment or question is, hey, when doing the color drop, it's not going all the way to the edge. That's your problem. So hopefully that answers some questions that people have. Do the smaller highlight here in the eye. And we've got our right or left eye done. Now we need to get over to the right. So let's go ahead. I want to shrink this down just a tad. And I'm going to switch over to freeform. With circles, I like to keep freeform on just so it keeps that exact circle shape and it doesn't start to become an oval with different sizes. So there we go. Let's go ahead and slide this to the left, and we're going to hit duplicate. Going back up to our arrow now, we're just going to drag this off to the side. And you can see our snapping lines hit. I've got snapping turned on down here so we can tell that these are perfectly lined up, which is what we want. So we've got that locked in. Looks good. So next up, of course, we need a mouth for this guy. So I'm going to zoom in here just a tad bit more. Let's go back to that same color that we used for the eyes. And I'm going to do this on a new layer. Now that we've got these done, we can go ahead and combine the eyes. If you want to pinch those together, or you can hit the button here or hit the layer and merge down. Whichever you choose to do. So we're going to make a new layer. This is going to be for the mouth. So let's get a mouth in here. I'm just going to draw a circle once again. Drag and drop the color in here. And now I'm just going to cut off the top, just basically erase like this, but I'm not going to erase like that because sometimes like this, okay, your line might be kind of slanted and go in one direction. I know some people complain when you move an item off of the canvas in Procreate, it cuts the item off. I use that to my advantage on times like this because if I want this cut in half, I just move it up there until those midpoints are there on the edge, lock it in, and then move it back down, not like that because that's going to make it huge. Move it back down, and there you go. I've got a perfectly cut off circle. So that's one of the tips that I would recommend too. I know, like I said, a lot of people hate that, getting cut off like that, but use it to your advantage if you can. So now that we've got that, let's go ahead and fill in some parts of the mouth here. So next up, let me go ahead and make a new layer. And this is going to be the teeth. So I'm going to set this one to clipping mask. This is going to allow us to draw the teeth in here and not go outside of that mouth. So we're going to switch back to white. And once again, still on that standard Inker streamline. And I'm just going to draw just a curve here for the teeth. Then I'm going to split these down the center with this pink color here. I'm also going to use this for the tongue. But if we just do a line down here to the center and kind of taper it down, we can kind of split those. So that looks good. So let's give them a tongue now. So we're going to go ahead and make a new layer once again. We're going to set this one to clipping mask as well so it stays inside the mouth there. And we're going to do two different sides of the tongue, which is going to help us doing shadows and highlights later on. So we're just going to do kind of a curve here and fill that in. So that's going to be the left side of the tongue. And then we're going to slide this one to the left, and then we're going to duplicate it. Going down to the bottom part of the tongue here, we're just gonna kind of slide it over and then shrink it down a little bit. I'm gonna use freeform here to change the size just a little bit in the shape. So there we go, fill that back in. All right, so that is basically, if you want to call it, our color flats. That's our basic shape with all the little face details in there. But now, of course, we need to make this thing look more appealing. We got to add some shadows and highlights. So we're going to do that next. So to do that, let's go ahead and go up to our layers here. And I think I want to start on the actual candy corn itself. So going with layer 1, let's select that and hit plus. So we're adding a new layer, and then we're gonna go ahead and do clipping mask on this one. So that's gonna once again allow us to color in on this layer, but it's gonna stay inside the lines of what we've got selected here. So going back up then to our color palette, this first color here on the third line, that's the one we're gonna use. And then for my brush here, I'm gonna use one of my textures, and I think I'm gonna use, let's do, for the outside, let's do sand. Once again, if you guys don't have this, you can kind of search through Procreate and find something that might work for you. And then since I've got the highlights on the pupils over here, that means the light's coming in from here, so I'm gonna have the shading here on this backside. So I'm gonna just start to kind of build up some shading here. Making sure I got the right size. And I'm just doing this really light, kind of changing back and forth the size of my brush to get the effect that I want. So it's gonna be kind of heavier, darker in the back and kind of fade towards the front. There we go. And from here, I'm gonna drop the opacity on this just a tad bit. So if I go to my layers and hit the N here, that's where opacity is now after the change in 5X. So I'm gonna go there, do my opacity there. And then I'm gonna go back up and I'm gonna go to this darker brown here. I'm gonna select that. Now I'm gonna switch over to soft fabric, and I'm gonna pull this on the far side here. Just darken this up just a tad bit. Bringing it down the bottom here. So it's really starting to kind of give that three-dimensional feel to it. So now that I've got that, let's go ahead and add in some highlights to that as well. So let's go back up here and I'm gonna go to white. And then with the brush that I'm still on, I'm just gonna kind of start to pull some highlights here. Just really soft so it kind of builds up that three-dimensional feel. Do the same thing here on the orange. I just want it kind of down this side here. We'll see here too, I kind of messed up that orange right there. It's got some of that yellow peeking through. So I'm gonna fix that real quick, switching back to my regular brush that I had before. There we go, got that. So back to the white highlights and back to my layer here for my highlights and shadows. And then back to my textures. There we go. Kind of pull a highlight here across the top. Make that bigger. Key here is just keep it real subtle so you just kind of get that hint that there's some shine there. So it's not super, super bright. But then you can go in and kind of add in, if you make your brush smaller, you can kind of add in some lines like this. So you do have kind of a heavy section to where it has more of a kind of brighter shine to it. So there we go. And now let's kind of make the eyes and the mouth pop just a little bit more here. So once again, using my soft fabric brush, I'm gonna go ahead and go here. Let's make a new layer because I want this to be on a separate layer than the shadows and highlights. And there's no need to alpha lock or anything because we're going to stay pretty close to the center here. No need to clipping mask, I mean. We're going to stay pretty close to the center. And you're going to see I'm just going to kind of pull around the bottom here. Kind of start to build up a highlight around the bottom of the eye. And then I'm going to do the same thing around the bottom of the mouth here. And the same thing around the bottom of this eye. You see, we're going to add some shadows in here too, which is really going to make this kind of look three-dimensional. All right, there we go. I think I got a little bit too much highlight there. Let me see that right there's a little, there we go. No need to do what I was going to do. So I forgot that that was on a separate layer. It's one of the benefits, like I said, of doing this on a separate layer than this. I was able to go in and erase that pretty easy without affecting all the stuff that I had done up there. So now staying on the same layer, we're going to go back to that first shadow color that we used. And we're going to start to build up a shadow around the top of the eye. This is going to make it look a little inset there. You'll see I'm doing it inside of the eye just so it kind of feathers out to the outside because I don't want it too thick. So starting out here is just going to make it too thick. It's going to come out too far. So starting on the inside is going to give just that nice kind of light feathered look to it because it's just picking up the edges of the brush. To achieve this, you just need to have it set just a little bit bigger than you probably usually would, just so it goes out further. Pull them back, then you can kind of see how those are starting to look inset. And then I'm going to drop this down just a little bit. We're going to do a little bit here underneath the eyes. So this is going to make that white kind of seem raised and popped out a little bit more. It's going to build up that three-dimensional quality as well. And we're going to do the same thing down here underneath the mouth. And help to bring out that white. And then the same thing here under this eye. All right, so there we go. Now let's go ahead and kind of build up the mouth as well here at the top. So I'm going to get a smaller brush here. Just kind of start to build up this around. So it's going to be just kind of following the shadow that we already have, but you can see I don't have the white there, so it's just kind of continuing on, just kind of like a hint that that comes up there. Don't want it too dark and don't want it to come down too far. And then we're going to add a shadow here at the top as well to make the mouth look like it comes in and drops down a little bit at that lip. Doing that, and then we can go ahead and make this a tad bit smaller and kind of build up the corners here. Darken those in. So when we pull back, you can see that it really kind of has that drop down feel to it, like it's going in towards the mouth. To bring this home a little bit more, then we're going to go back up to our color palette, and this darker color here we're going to hit underneath here at the bottom. This is going to have the heaviest shadow on it, so we need to build this up just a little bit more, and that makes it look like it's even more kind of coming in there. We can also use this a little bit more on the corners too to bring that home. All right, so there we go. Let's go ahead, and I think I want to add some little highlights to the eyes too. So selecting our white, let's go ahead and alpha lock the layer of our eyes. And then we're going to use that soft fabric again, and I'm just going to kind of go around this front part where those highlights are. So it's going to have kind of a shine to it itself. Once again, this is just kind of playing back and forth with the size of your brush. You don't want it too big, you don't want it too small. Likewise, we don't want to get these too bright, just because this is kind of the darkest area, darkest color that we've used on this design. So if you get them too bright, it's going to look a little off. So there's that. I'm gonna drop the opacity just a tad bit. Actually, I can't because I did that on Alpha Lock, so never mind. That's one of the reasons why it's good to go to like a clipping mask on another layer. If I would drop the opacity of this now, instead of dropping the opacity of the white, it's gonna drop the opacity of everything on the eyes, so the black and everything. So to fix that, if I wanted to, I could switch back over to black and then just kind of pull in around some of these areas. But if I go over top of those highlights there and the pupils, that's gonna knock those with some black, so I don't wanna do that. So I think that's pretty good there. So finally, let's go ahead and get the mouth here. So let's go, first off, let's go ahead and go to the mouth itself. Let's Alpha Lock this, and then going down, let's see, oops, actually definitely made a new color in there. I don't think I have black in here. Let's go ahead and select black though, and let's just kind of pull in a little bit of black here. Just so it's not all one color. And then let's go ahead and work on the tongue. So first let's go to the left-hand side, this top layer. Going back up to my color palette, I'm gonna go ahead and select this reddish pink color here. We're still on soft fabric. Then you're gonna see I'm just gonna kind of build this up from the bottom. Just gonna kind of start to give it a three-dimensional feel. Then I'm gonna go back to that darker brown here and hit the bottom some more. See how that kind of builds up. And let's do the same thing to the right-hand side. So once again, go into that one, go into that darker reddish pink, and then back again to that brown. And this I just want to hit kind of right there at that cut where they meet. Then let's add some highlights. So back to white, and we're just going to hit the front or the top of these. And you got to be careful here because even though, well, we don't have this Alpha Lock, so let's go ahead and Alpha Lock these. Careful here that you don't get this too thick. You want it fairly thin around the top there. Just where that light's coming in. And then last but not least, we just need to do the teeth here. Just give some shadows there. So if we go ahead and let's go to this color here, the third one on the top row, and then going to the teeth layer, and we're going to Alpha Lock this and just kind of slowly bring in a shadow here from the top, fading it down, and then also here to the side. All right. And there we go. Last but not least, we just got to sign this guy. So I'm going to switch back to the color of my eyes here. And I'm just going to make a new layer to make this easy. Switching back to my inker. And there we go. I know I've got a little piece of yellow there, but good enough. So there we go. Day 5 of my 31 days of Halloween drawing tutorials. Hopefully you guys liked today's video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell for notifications so you can get alerted when I post new videos. Because like I said, there's gonna be a total of 31 days of these Halloween themed drawing tutorials. So if you like today's, there's more to come. And if you do take part in these, if you make a design based on these tutorials, I wanna see what you do, so post it online. If you're on Instagram or Twitter, definitely tag me at BJDell, or you can also post it in my art group over on Facebook called Keep Creating, a group for artists by artists. I will link that down in the description as well, a place where you can share your art, give feedback, get feedback. It's an awesome place to be, and I want you guys to be a part of it as well. So there you go. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at BJDell, Facebook, my website, bjdell.com, and then also my podcast, Make Money With Your Art, available wherever you listen to podcasts at. That's it for me until tomorrow. Hopefully you'll join me then. And until next time, keep creating.